I would prefer quality over quantity any day of the week.
I am speechless. There was a bill that has to do with education that I actually think is great. And in fact, it passed the Senate with bipartisan support unanimously. So if you have a bill on education in today's day and age, an issue that is so heated and there's controversy all woven throughout it, if you can get a bill on education that passes through the Senate in Washington State unanimously, chances are that's a pretty good bill. And it's Senate Bill 5180. What the bill would allow for is Washington State to join this Interstate Teacher Mobility Compact. We have a huge military community. And so, for that reason, you've got military spouses who might be moving here from out of state. We also have a shortage of teachers. So what Senate Bill 5180 would do is it would make it easier for people who were a teacher in another state to move here and become a teacher here. As I mentioned, it passed unanimously in the Senate, and then it goes over to the House Education Committee, where everything is just utter lunacy. But a representative from the Department of Defense spoke in favor of it for one of the reasons I just underlined.
I hope this committee can see this as an opportunity to strengthen your workforce and increase the diversity in the teacher population, which is available to come here to Washington State. We estimate that of the over 25,000 military spouses in Washington State, 1,100 of them hold a teaching certificate and are available to teach here in Washington State. This would ease that burden for them.
Enter Representative Sharon Santos on the House Education Committee, who had a bone to pick with this particular bill, in part because apparently she believes that the way we instruct teachers and the way that we run our schools in Washington State is so far superior to other states that a teacher from another state can't possibly be a teacher here.
We have spent a lot of time in Washington State making sure that we are creating and supporting a professional educator workforce that reflects the diversity of our student body and that has the training to be able to work with neurodiverse students, other students with special needs, and so I have been in conversation with the prime sponsor around how do we get to a place where we have legislation that he would like to see enacted while protecting all of the hard work that we have done in the state of Washington over the past decade plus.
How freaking sanctimonious is that? Oh, if you're a teacher in another state, you can't possibly work with neurodiverse kids in the way that our teachers do, that we've trained them to do. We've fostered a very diverse environment. Rep. Santos, do you understand how diverse the military community is? Are you assuming that these are just white military spouses who are going to move here and they can't possibly teach a diverse set of students? And are you suggesting that Washington State is even relatively close to the most diverse state in the country? It's so incredibly sanctimonious. Like, oh, they don't train their teachers like we do here. What's funny about this is I didn't even know that this bill was in the hearing yesterday. We were watching the House Education Committee hearing yesterday morning for a bill we're going to talk about coming up next. And as I'm sitting waiting for the testimony on the bill I was interested in, I heard this. And I heard this exchange with between Representative Sharon Santos and a House staff member. And Representative Santos on this line of questioning was saying, okay, well, if we have to be part of this multi-state compact, can we put these expectations above and beyond other states in place and still be part of the compact?
There's a requirement that the enacted legislation be substantially similar to the model legislation. And so depending on whether the commission determined that those additions, the amendments were not making the full legislation substantially similar, then they may deny admission.
All these other states, it's good enough for all these other states to say, these are the standards that we feel like if a teacher comes into our state, yes, of course, we're willing to take them in. We want to make it easier to hire them and to teach our kids. Standards that are good enough for every other state, but not in Washington state, where DEI, gender ideology, if that has not been baked into you as a teacher elsewhere, then we don't want you here.
So would provisional acceptance be something that we would, that we might be able to?
So there is a requirement that the license that is provided to the applicant be unencumbered, and I'm not finding the definition at the moment, but my recollection is that that means a full license, not a provisional license.
If I were these other states in this teacher compact, I'd be like, Washington can't come. Washington can't join us. In fact, we don't want teachers who've been trained in the Washington way in our schools. I want to play one more cut from, again, Representative Sharon Santos on the Democrat on the House Education Committee. And one of the things that really embarrassed me about this is her reaction after hearing from the representatives from the Department of Defense, who are like, we would love for Washington to be part of this program. This would be a great thing for our military spouses. Listen to Representative Santos absolutely crap on the idea of having these military spouses from other states teach here.
We have invested a lot of time and money to make sure that our teachers are well prepared to teach the multicultural, diverse students that occupy the classrooms of Washington State. If it's not going to be the 5 years, and if it's not going to be a provisional, what ideas do you have to ensure that we are not perpetuating some of the bad practices that may be allowed in other states? I'm not going to impugn any specific other state, but that may be allowed in other states that perhaps have not engaged in the deep policy work that Washington State has. Because, frankly, to Tammy's point, I would prefer quality over quantity any day of the week.
I am speechless. When it comes to our teachers, you'd prefer quality over quantity any day of the week. Look, I think we all would to a certain extent. I mean, we have to have enough teachers to staff our schools, certainly, but I talk all the time on this show about wanting quality teachers. But Representative Sharon Santos, what's your definition of quality over quantity? Is your definition of quality, I don't know, a Seattle public school teacher who engages in criminal acts of vandalism?
You don't think that's vandalism? What you're doing?
No, not at all.
It's not vandalism? Boycott Bucks, end the occupation now.
Is your definition of quality a public school teacher who puts up pro-Hamas propaganda outside his classroom and posts on Facebook that Hamas didn't behead anyone and Hamas didn't rape anyone? Is that your definition of quality over quantity? Is your definition of quality over quantity an Olympia School District teacher who engages in a secret email communication with a student who wants to change their gender identity and informs the student to get a personal email account so they can communicate, and that student should delete email communications between the two of them? Is your definition of quality over quantity celebrating Fidel Castro during an MLK assembly? Is your definition of quality over quantity reading a book called A is for Activist to students to teach them how to go out and protest? To teach them about far-left militant organizations in the 4th grade? Is that your idea of quality over quantity? Is it your idea of quality over quantity when teachers in Washington State read books to 4th graders that tell them that a doctor just guessed at their gender when they were born? Is that quality over quantity? And what are these intensive, hard, difficult, meaningful training exercises that we put teachers through in Washington State that these other states just haven't even scratched the surface of? Are they, I don't know, training classes like culturally responsive art instruction? Equity literacy? Is this the kind of deep, systemic work we've done that makes Washington State's teachers so much better than any other teachers in the country? Or is it like in the Olympia School District where you actually hold training sessions where you segregate teachers on the basis of race? And you have BIPOC lunch clubs for elementary school kids and perpetuate racism? Is that what you mean when you say so sanctimoniously, Representative, that the spouses of military members who have perhaps spent a decade teaching in another state can't possibly be equipped to teach in the Washington way?